Hi, and welcome to Lesson 10 of Algebra 1, the beginning of Week 4 in our distance learning. This is Rob Yates, and if your teacher in algebra is Ms. Boatwright, Ms. Reynolds, Mr. McCrae, Mr. Strickland, Mr. Still, or Mr. Yates, you're in the right place. I remind you that you can stop this video at any time. You can rewind it. You can fast forward it. You can even replay the entire thing from the beginning once you've been through it once. But once you get through it, you get to the joke of the day. Today, our learning target is I can factor binomials and trinomials using various methods. Fancy words, but a binomial is simply an equation with two terms, and a trinomial is an equation with three terms. Let's review Box and Dimond. We did this last week. Here's our example. X squared plus 3x minus 28. They would like us to factor that. So, I like to write down my A, B, and C. Remember, the general pattern is ax squared plus bx plus c. And in this particular case, my A equals 1 because there's nothing there in front of the x squared. My B equals 3. And my C equals negative 28. We can put the A term in the lower left-hand corner of our box and the C term in the upper right-hand corner. We know that in the top of our diamond, it's A times C. 1 times negative 28 is negative 28. And the B term goes in the bottom of the diamond, and the B term is 3. So what we need to determine are what two numbers multiplied together equal negative 28, but added together equal 3. I remind you that the only way we can have a negative product or result of a multiplication problem is if one of the terms is negative and one of it is positive. So, negative 1 and 28 adds up to 27, so that is not going to work. Negative 2 times 14 equals negative 28, but it adds up to 12, so it's not correct. 3 does not go into 28, but 4 does, and if we multiplied negative 4 times 7, we would get negative 28. And if we added negative 4 and 7, we would get 3. So these are our factors, the two numbers that multiplied together equal negative 28 and added together equal 3. We're going to put them in our little diamond, and we're going to put them in our box. Now we have to determine the factors from our box. We start with an x here. I have an x here. X times what equals x squared? You are correct. X times x equals x squared. X times what equals 3x? Well, x times 3 equals 3x. X times what equals negative 4x? Well, that would be negative 4. So our factors for this first problem are x minus 4 times x plus 3. Let's take a look at the next one. It says factor x squared minus 10x plus 16. We know that A equals 1 because there's nothing in front of the x squared. And B equals negative 10. And C equals 16. Get my C a little high there. Let me bring it down a little bit. Got a blind spot. That's what made me do that. All right. Well, we can put our x squared in the lower left-hand corner, or we can put our C term in the upper right-hand corner. We know that at the top of our box and diamond, it's A times C. Well, 1 times 16 is 16. And b goes in the bottom, it's negative 10. Ask yourself, how can I have a negative sum when I add two numbers together but a positive product? Well, hopefully you realize that the answer to that is I have to have two negative numbers. A negative times a negative is a positive. So, we'll start with negative 1 and negative 16. Well, that's the right multiple, but it adds up to negative 17, so it's not going to work. Negative 2 times negative 8 is positive 16. And what is negative 2 plus negative 8? If you said negative 10, you are correct. Those are two numbers. So let's figure out what our factors are. We start with an x, and we ask ourselves, x times what equals x squared? It's x times x. Then we ask ourselves, x times what equals negative 8x? Well, it's negative 8 times x equals negative 8x. Then, what is x times what equals negative 2x? And of course, x times negative 2 is negative 2x. So our factors for x squared minus 10x plus 16 are x squared, oh my goodness. I'm going to write the original problem again for you. Be x minus 2 times x minus 8. All right, now we're going to do greatest common factor review. Greatest common factor is where sometimes we have trinomials that aren't factorable, except we can just pull out one number, and they're not factorable further than that. For instance, if we look at 4x squared plus 30x minus 8, we could write that as 2 times x plus 2 times 5 times 3 times x plus 2 times 2 times 2 times negative 1 for 8. And we could see that our greatest common factor, in other words, the biggest number that shows up in each one of our three terms, is a 2. So we can pull it out. If we pull out the 2, we are left with 2 times x, so 2x squared, plus 3 times 5 times x, so that would be 15x, plus 2 times negative 1 times 2, which is negative 4. If we look at 2x squared plus 15x minus 4, what two numbers multiply together equal negative 8 but added together equal 15? Can't do that, so there are no further factors. 2 times 2x squared plus 15x minus 4 is our final factored amount. How about the next one? What does that look like? We have 3x squared minus 9x plus 27. So that is 3 times x minus 3 times 3 times x plus 3 times 3 times 3. Well, the quick ones amongst you are noticing that I've got a 3 here, a 3 here, and a 3 here. And I can pull that out. And what I have left with is x times x, which is x squared, negative 3 times x, so minus 3x, and 3 times 3, plus 9. Again, I cannot factor that any further, so 3 times x squared minus 3x plus 9 is my final answer. No further factors. You can try if you like what two numbers multiplied together equal 9, but added together equal -3. If you find them, let me know, but don't think so. All right, how about 15x squared minus 10x? Well, 15 is 3 times 5. X squared is x times x. -2 times 5 is -10 times x. If I look closely at this, I got a 5x here, I have a 5x here. So I can pull out 5x. What do I have left? 3 times x, or 3x, -2, minus 2. So my final factor for 15x squared minus 10x is 5x times the parenthetical expression of 3x minus 2. Let's take a look at one more. See if you can do it. It says 2 times x to the third power plus x squared plus 20x. See if you can write out the factors. 2 times x to the third would be what? Stop the video, give it a try. Hopefully you stopped the video, and what you came up with for this last term was 2 times x times x times x, because there's 3 of them, plus 2 times 3 times x, because there's 2 of them, in 6x squared, plus 2 times 2 times 5 times x for the last one. If you look closely, what we see is in each one of these I have a 2 and an x, a 2 and an x, a 2 and an x. So I pulled that out. 2x. What do I have left? Well, x squared, x times x, 3 times x, so plus 3x, 2 times 5, which is 10. You can also get these numbers by just taking a look at the original number. If I pull a 2x out of 2x to the third power, what do I have left? I have x squared left. If I pull 2x out of 6x squared, what do I have left? 3x. If I pull 2x out of 20x, what do I have left? 10. There is our final factor. All right, let's check out something new. How about factoring the difference of squares? What is the difference of squares? Well, we all know that a difference is a subtraction problem, correct? We can use factoring the difference of squares if there are 2 terms. For instance, x squared minus 9. And the first term is a perfect square, and the second term is a perfect square. In other words, they have a square root that's a whole number. And you're subtracting. Well, x squared is a perfect square of x, right? X times x, that's x squared. -9 is a perfect square of 3, right? 3 times 3 is 9. It says we can just make a parentheses. Here we go. And we can put the x for the first one in the first parentheses and in the second one. And we can go plus 3 and minus 3. So x plus 3, sorry, that's not a very attractive plus sign, is it? X plus 3 times x minus 3 is the factor of that perfect square. Let's try the same thing with the next one, which is x squared minus 100. Well, what is the square root of x squared? If you said x, you are correct. What is the square root of 100? What times what, being the same number, equals 100? The answer is 10. So, to this pattern, we would go x plus 10 times x minus 10. But are we sure it's the factor? Take a look at it. X times x is x squared. X times negative 10 is minus 10x. 10 times x is plus 10x. 10 times negative 10 is minus 100. Well, as you know, negative 10 and positive 10 cancel. And so what this equals is x squared minus 100. What we started out with, so it is a correct factoring of x squared minus 100. How about the next one? It's a little tougher. Is 4x squared a perfect square? Well, wait a minute. It's a number and a letter. Well, I know that the square root of x squared is x. What's the square root of 4? If you said 2, you are correct. 2 times 2 is 4. So our first term would be 2x. How about negative 81? What times what equals 81? If you said 9, you are correct. 2x plus 9, and then 2x what? What's the next thing I got to put here? If you said minus, you are correct. All right. We have the next and last one on this page is 16x squared minus 25. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to stop the video and see if you can factor 16x squared minus 25. When you think you have the answer, turn the video back on, and I'll tell you what the answer is. All right, now stop the video. Hopefully you stopped the video. And hopefully what happened was you asked yourself, what is the square root of 16? And you knew that that was 4. And you knew that the square root of x squared was x. So the first term is going to be 4x. What's the square root of 25? Well, hopefully you told yourself it's 5. And you wrote down a plus 5. And then you wrote down a 4x minus 5. If you did that, pat yourself on the back. Congratulations. 4x plus 5 times 4x minus 5 multiplied out will equal 16x squared minus 25. If you're wondering why we're switching from Box and Dimond, you can still use Box and Dimond. It'll work with all of these. All right. The new kind of factoring that we studied today was called what? It's called the difference of squares. What factors, what's in the parentheses, will be the same, except that one is what and the other is what? Well, we look back at our pattern. We saw that one of them was a plus, right? And the other one was a minus. What's next? You can log into Khan Academy, do an exercise. You can try student.desmos.com. You can try to do practice worksheet 10 or Google homework 10. If you're not ready to jump right into writing stuff up yet, you can go watch video 11, our next lesson. But I know what you're waiting for. It's the joke of the day. And so I have to ask you, why do rappers need umbrellas? Faux drizzle, of course. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.